that's like a Australian trans like slasher mystery around Christmas time.
Why, hello, everybody. My name is Eric Vierthaler, and I'm here for the next episode, Sit Down by the Fire. I'm here with my editor, Taylor, and we're here with our next special guests. Please introduce yourselves.
Oh, me? I'm Ellison Winterstein. I'm president. What's my title? What is my title again?
President and Creative Lead.
President and Creative Lead. That's my title at Evil Twin Digital. Daniel, you know your title.
Hi, I'm Daniel Isabella. I'm Vice President of Production and Management at Evil Twin Digital.
But yeah, thank you both so much for sharing that. So how about that you tell the audience about the origin of Evil Twin Digital?
That's a you story, Ellison. I can't.
So, so Evil Twin Digital started ages ago. I was in high school and I was making I was doing what filmmakers and people do in high school, which is make tiny short films with their friends that are somewhat embarrassing as adults, but you're also still kind of proud of, even though it's not socially acceptable to admit it. And I was making those for a while, and then I got to college, and then I was trying to get more and more ambitious and trying to do longer things and better things. And I would run into myself, essentially, that I was not organized enough to be doing that. And then I was going to do a short film called A Very Merry Christmas Party. And I mentioned it to Daniel. And then Daniel was like, oh, I'd like to, producing that sounds good. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he went, no, I can do the phone calls and I can arrange the things. And then you can do your jobs and not have to also do the producing jobs. And I went, I like that idea a lot. That sounds really smart. And then he did that and it worked really well. And we had a great time. And then we kept doing it and it grew and we added more people. And now we've been doing it. Daniel, you get the LinkedIn notifications. What are we at now?
Oh, good Lord. I think since we filed as an LLC, we're at about 3 years. But since we've all been doing it together, we're at almost 5.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's fluctuated based on who's in it and where we are, because we've moved multiple times and worked in multiple cities. But now it's great because there's a network of people. We film down in Atlanta sometimes. Sometimes we film up in Michigan. I live in Chicago now. We're hoping to film in Chicago soon for the first time. So it's become a very large network of people who like to work together.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I have been to Chicago once, and the one thing that I will never forget about it was just layers and layers of cars, just like in one lane from another. And so then therefore, if I wanted to turn into the other lane, well, good luck.
Have you ever been to Atlanta?
I have not, but however, though, I actually am planning to make a trip there at around May.
So is
traffic
bad parking? Yeah, so you've got normal parking is like here, then worse, we've got Chicago parking, and then below that we have Atlanta parking or traffic. Like traffic in Atlanta is it wasn't made for the amount of people who are driving there now. So it has a hellish quality in some ways, but you need to drive everywhere because there's no good public transportation. I shouldn't say no good public. If you're on one very specific, the train runs like a cross. So if you live on the cross, you're golden. If you live anywhere else, good luck.
Oh yeah, I can certainly take your word for it. But yeah, I'm actually going to be moving there either August of this year or August of next year. But yeah, it's just something that I'm taking one step at a time.
It's a very nice city. We lived there for 2 years, and we met a lot of incredible people, and we still go down there to do work every. I'm usually down there like every month or two still, like driving or flying down, and it's a wonderful city. Like I love Chicago, but I miss living there. And we met a lot of really great friends that I'm sure we'll know for years and years.
Oh yeah, probably yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that I have heard, I mean, compared to a lot of other major cities, it actually is a lot cheaper than, say, LA or New York, which is one of the nice things about it.
It is. I have to warn you, it's still very expensive. It's it as two people who shared a one bathroom, two bed apartment in that city, surviving on film jobs or equivalent kinds of things. It's still, but that's less says anything about the city and more says things about the economy. Not to make it too dire, but the economy is not great right now, and the job market's not fun.
Yeah, definitely. But hey, I mean, that right there is a whole new topic in of itself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and so with your so with the name Evil Twin Digital, does it mostly consist of like horror films?
You'd think. And several people have said, oh, well, you must only do horror because your name has evil in it. We run the gambit. We do anything that we find creatively interesting, which our first feature film that is hopefully releasing in the not too distant future, Hot Breath, Cold Air, is a rom-com set at a college. Then our second, The House on the Lake, is a silent black and white horror movie. We've done screwball comedies. We've done sketch comedy shows. We've done long form horror, short form horror, dramas, anything in between. If we find something in a project that we think is worth making, we're gonna make it.
What's
Makes
your
sense, yeah.
favorite?
That is a
Well,
tough question.
Well, that's hard because it's fun to make things. I mean, that's the reason we do it.
Yep.
And so that's sort of like being like, I guess you can say like, what's your favorite food? Like, I love making horror and it's a lot of where my mind goes, but also like, I also love like, I don't know, I love a vanilla milkshake with whiskey in it, but like, I don't want to drink that like every night. So like, like it's the kind of thing of like I would say horror, but also like I don't want to give the impression that like, oh, I'm a guy who like if you looked at my filmography, it's all horror. It's like we co-wrote a musical together and like we come back to doing comedy all the time, very regularly. Like every year or two I've convinced Daniel to let me do an action thing. Even though time and budget wise they're by far the highest expenditure. Yeah, I can't answer for Daniel, but I would say for me.
Before I met Ellison, I did not like horror movies. I did not watch them. I did not consume any horror media. It was not my thing. And Ellison and a few other friends who we had in college convinced me of the wonderful truth that horror is just comedy, except for the punchline is you're scared. And so now I find it so hard to untangle those concepts to me of like, I love doing them both because there is so much similarity in them.
Yeah.
It's building something up to then follow through with it, whether that be a joke and a punchline or a really gory serial killer destroying a human person. My favorite moments are the things where on set you are doing something so ridiculous, whether it be dragging someone out the back of a car for a horror movie or safely, absolutely,
Yeah, safely,
simulated
yeah.
stuff. Or tossing toast at the camera over and over and over again in order to get a very specific shot. So when it comes down to watching things, I love to watch comedy. I love to watch horror too, but I'm gonna go comedy. But when it comes to making things, it's however I can get to those absolutely absurd moments, and comedy and horror are just where I get there. So
Yeah, and I mean, you certainly brought up a really good point, like about horror is like comedy, but just without the punchline instead as a scare. I never thought of it that way, but now that you say that, it really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, I mean it partially. I mean we met each other through comedy, because we were in we both went to Michigan State University, and there's a student group there called MSU Telecasters, which is a wonderful, wonderful place. If anyone watching this is going to go to or goes to there, you should check them out. They've been around since the 1980s, and they're a collection of shows. They're essentially like a small TV network that publishes to the internet, but they're a collection of shows that are of all these different genres. And then you meet people who are like-minded, you work together, and then you learn together. And we met through doing comedy together. And then part of that springboarding, like introducing horror to Daniel, because horror was a big part of me at that point, was knowing him creatively. I was like, there's a lot of this he would love. Like this practicality of it, of the like that most of the goop in horror movies is real, not real, but it's like someone has to craft it. I was like, that's his thing, like he'll love that. And so I had to
goop.
yeah, so I had to do not the task, but I had to introduce them, like, this thing isn't always depressing or like serious as it kind of gets advertised. It's like, even when it's sometimes like scary, it's still, it's like if you describe, like, we both love the Halloween movies. If you describe a lot of the Halloween movies, in the moment they're very serious and like they're deeply meaningful to me, but also they're the stupidest things ever in a complimentary way. Like, they're so silly.
Yeah, especially with Halloween Resurrection, like where Busta Rhymes karate chops Michael Myers and says all those ridiculous one-liners.
Yeah.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Yeah, like stuff like that is like, and that's part of that is no less horror than something, that's deeply sad, or like and it isn't necessarily, that's not a good movie, but like there are other ones that are silly, like we love Demons, like the movie Demons from the 80s. That's like that movie's, that's so silly. Like that movie's like wild stuff. The guy, riding around a movie theater on a motorcycle with a samurai sword, like, and it's a great movie. Like, it's fun that it's a genre that's so malleable, and quality isn't tied in at all to believability or to realism or anything like that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And even the Friday the 13th franchise even had some funny moments in it, like especially in Friday the 13th Part 8, like during the part like where Jason kicks their radio, and then as soon as he puts his mask up, that whole entire gang's like, okay, man, it's cool. It's cool.
Hey, Daniel, what's the only Friday the 13th movie you've seen?
I can't remember the number, but the one where he goes to New York, because I thought 8. It was funny.
Funny.
It's 8.
It is 8.
It's
funny.
8.
Yes.
We were watching. We watched. What was it? Was it like Muppets Take Manhattan or something like that? And
it
I was
was
like,
something else with it, like goes to New York.
And I was like, we got to keep the vibe going. You know what's great? Friday the 13th 8. And he was like, is it great? And I was like, it's not great, but it's great. Like, it's like you'll be entertained.
Yeah, I mean, Friday the 13th Part 8, it's by no means a great movie. And I mean, a lot of people have complained about how Jason's on a boat for most of the movie. Yeah, I get it, but that was mostly for budgetary constraints because of how expensive it is to film in New York. But I mean, I'm not going to lie. Friday the 13th Part 8 is a very entertaining movie.
I mean,
I don't know which one it was, but me and Eric watched one. This is the only one I watched. And I was not a big fan of it, simply because I was over-analyzing every aspect of it. Going like, why were they using that gun? Why didn't they use this other gun? Like, I just overthought it all.
I think you're thinking about Halloween 2018.
Oh yeah, it was Halloween, not Friday. Wait, no.
Yeah, which, and I mean,
Friday was Halloween, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and a lot of people get those two franchises mixed up, and I get it.
Yeah.
Both of them have a Max Killer, like, who doesn't say anything, and also both of them take place on a holiday. So I totally get it.
Part of what's fun about all of this, and this goes for like movies in general. I watch a lot. Like, I don't mean this is a braggadocious thing, but I watch a lot of movies. Last year I watched like I think I ended at like 450 something. Like,
Wow.
I watch a lot of movies. It's my hobby, and I have to add there that I have a very patient partner who also likes to watch things, and that part's I have to give respect to Andy for that, because she doesn't put up with that, but she does understand it. But in watching all of that, I've sort of come to this thing of like, I like anytime I go into a movie, I want to like it. Like I don't, and there's nothing wrong with disliking a movie. Like it hits you, like you're honest about your opinions. Like that's good. I mean, like
Right.
general you, but like it's also this thing where it's like if someone like watched any of our movies and thought that they were god awful and were bad, like I don't find any kind of like moral offense to them. I just hope that they went in also wanting to like it. And I try to extend the same thing to anyone else. And then if it doesn't work, like I don't mean anything against them like personally. It's just sometimes you watch, I don't know, any number of things that you don't like, and then you go, something about it doesn't click with you, and it's like, oh,
What was that horror movie, Ellison, that we watched that I really despised and I keep
I don't want to
Harvest
say
Moon
that.
or something?
I don't want to say the name of them because they
I
okay.
would love to have a conversation with the creatives and like understand what they were going for, but
I think Dark Harvest.
Dark Harvest.
I think
That was a
that's what
movie
it's
I
called.
really went into wanting to like and really came out of going, why did you do that?
Yeah,
I don't
but
think
also
I have ever seen that one.
But there's no.
I
But
know I
also like
haven't.
there's no like. I think what can be troublesome is if we like dehumanize the people who made the thing, which
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's what I mean is Daniel like is not approach like I think it's like if we start being like, oh, these assholes, like why did these guys fuck this up? Like I understand the instinct, like because I've had things where I'm like, I wanted to love this so much and I don't. But then, it's like when you're on the other side of it, like people making stuff, like you don't ever want to make it bad. Like I have stuff I've made where like I like people don't like it, and I got to be like, fair. Like I was trying though.
And I mean that is very common. Like for people who will see a lot of movies, they'll go, "Man, if I was the one who made it, I would have done this way instead of that way." And I mean, that's what a lot of filmmakers like will deal with whenever they're making like a really hyped up movie, like if it's a sequel to like a really big name franchise like Star Wars. I mean, that's something that they have to deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but I mean, I see. Daniel and I both are like in the people we work with and the stuff we watch is like we enjoy. I think, and most people like originality of some, even if it's like you're doing a thing that's been done before, but you're doing it in either just like from a unique perspective or a unique angle. Like this last year, I loved In a Violent Nature, which is just a slasher movie, but it's like mostly following the killer's like third person point of view with like
Uh-huh.
no cutting. I loved that. And then that same year, there's a movie called Carnage for Christmas that's like a Australian trans like slasher mystery around Christmas time, and like I loved that too. And it's like part of the reason I enjoyed them both so much is like I haven't seen that before. Like
Right.
they were executed well, both of them, but I was also just like, oh man, this is fun. Like this is new. Like hey, like I'm just excited in a bodily way. Like
Yeah, and what you said just reminded me about the Terrifier movies because a lot of people, even myself, are saying, killer clowns, they've been done so many times in horror movies where, people are saying, I don't think there's anything else that you can do like with killer clowns in a horror movie. But then along came Terrifier. And, Terrifier was very unique since that Art the Clown doesn't speak. Like when killer clowns always would speak in horror movies and they always were colorful, while when Art the Clown wasn't colorful, he was just black and white. And then that right there proves that you absolutely can take old ideas and and you definitely can get people interested in it. It's just a matter of how you execute it.
I mean,
Yeah.
since I don't want to spoil anything in particular, but
Yeah, I was gonna
as,
we have a
as
project
people,
with a colorless unspeaking clown. I won't say which one for we
Oh,
keep it out of
That-
the advertising for it. So if anyone's looking
Yeah.
through our filmography, which obviously it is a very different interpretation than Art the Clown, but
Oh, I can imagine.
but you were
But
saying
it's
that, and
also
it was like, yeah, we
checks all the boxes
hope
of our creature as well.
we used to advertise the clown, and then we were submitting to a festival, and the festival, the guy in charge of it, he messaged Daniel and it was like, is the clown in any of the ads? And we were like, yeah. And he was like, take it out, it's a great surprise, take it out of the ads. Like, so we did, we took his advice.
Yeah, which, and I mean, a lot of films like will do that with their marketing. Like a really good example is with the new Nosferatu. Like in all the marketing for it, you never once see like how Bill Skarsgård looks like as Count Orlok, which I think that that was really smart. They did that. It's because like that it saves the surprise for the film itself.
I loved that movie.
We both love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh
We had
yeah,
a great
I
time.
same as well. Oh yeah, I mean spoilers for Nosferatu. I was not expecting how he was going to have the mustache, but it makes sense why he did have it, since that in the original Dracula book, he actually did have a mustache. So it does make sense why that they went down that route, and that knowing that this is now another remake of Nosferatu, they don't want to just do the same thing what's already been done. You know, they want to have a new twist on the character. So it definitely does make sense.
I really loved the new Nosferatu. I think it is very unfortunate timing on their behalf that they came out the same month as Sonic the Hedgehog, and they gave him that big Dr. Eggman mustache. Like you said, I totally understand it as a character choice, as a design choice. Just the timing to be at the same time when everyone's already thinking about Dr. Eggman and look at this guy and go, that's the same mustache.
Yeah, exactly. So therefore, it can be a lot harder for general audiences to take it seriously. Is because they automatically are going to imagine Jim Carrey with like his wacky, stretched out mustache. So
Yeah.
Just the luck of the draw sometimes.
it is, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, making stuff is always a little bit of a gamble of like, excuse me. So we have a movie that Daniel and I have been co-writing together for, which I'm not going to go into details about, but we've been co-writing together for several years now, and drafts and versions of it have been done and in various stages for a while, and but we'd like to make it, and we think it's a really cool, unique idea. And anytime anything close that looks like it could be it comes out, we instantly both separately will see a trailer or an announcement. We'll go then rush over and watch it, or read the article and be like, is it the thing? Is it the thing? Did someone else come up with it before we could do it? And then we'll watch it. We'll be like, so far it's been like, oh no, it just kind of looks like it could be, but no one got it yet. Oh man, we really got to get that movie made. But that's what having ideas and ideating, because sometimes you have an idea and you're like, oh, this is really good. I remember I pitched Daniel a werewolf thing, and Daniel, I had it all laid out. I was like, I did this outline and everything, and Daniel was like, I'm sorry, I gotta tell you, that's an episode of Psych. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, it's an episode of Psych. And I went, the whole thing? He was like, yeah, just 1-to-1. I was like, damn it, okay, well, back to the drawing board. So I percolated on it for a couple more days. I did some, I changed some stuff around, came back and I was like, Daniel, okay, what about this? And he was like, I mean, minus the werewolf part, that's another episode of Psych. And I was just like, okay, well, this is a sign. I gotta get rid of this one.
It's also my favorite television show of all time, and I do have a mildly encyclopedic knowledge, so if there's anything I'm going to compare things to, there's an 80% chance I'll just go, oh, well, that's season 2, episode 14. Black and Tan, A Crime of Fashion, which isn't the episode that was the werewolf thing, but
Yeah, well, I mean, you really do learn something new every day, right?
yes.
Absolutely. In more ways than one can ever anticipate.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so how about that you tell the audience what exactly how exactly was your guys's first, so when you guys worked together on your first project, how was that like?
Well, so like Ellison said, I like the first time we came together and I kind of became part of Evil Twin Digital was not the first time we'd worked together. Um, can I tell the story about the script, Ellison?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can tell the story about the script. That's fine.
Because this is the first time we really got to know each other. We were both part of this student organization, and Ellison was in charge of one of the shows on the network there, part of MSU Telecasters, that was more dramatic focused. It was basically the only show that wasn't comedy.
Turn. I gotta tell
It
it.
was called
Turn. All my turn guys.
And he was producing the show, and he was looking for scripts and looking for people who had things. And we had like casual conversation on sets a handful of times. And we were in our sophomore year of college. And I texted him. I said, "Hey, I've got this script. I really think might be good for your show." And he said, we live in the same dorm building. Why don't you just come over and show me?" And I went, "Okay, cool." And in Ellison's mind, he says to himself, "Okay, it'll take him like 10 minutes to 15 minutes, depending on where he lives in this giant dorm building at MSU, to get here. And like, I'm still in bed, but like, I have a few minutes to get ready." I get up, I walk out my door, I look across the hall, and I looked out at my phone at the room number he sent me, and Ellison lived directly across the hall from me in dorms, just completely random by. We did not know each other at the time, and I knock on the door, and he gets up out of bed, and he's like,
No,
wearing his shirt.
no. I don't get up out of
Oh,
bed.
your
Jesus
roommate
goes to the door.
Yes.
Jesus goes over to the door and is like, "What? Do you know?" And I like get up wearing like pajama pants and no shirt, and I'm like, "Ha, what? That was fast." And there's kind of a moment of like, he's like, "I live across the hall, I guess." And I'm just like, "Well, let me make myself presentable." Like,
Yeah.
and Jesus was very confused.
Yeah, and just to imagine that, like that you two lived that close the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is crazy.
It helps that like when we got to working together, like we weren't like forced together, but it made it like that first year.
We saw each other every day.
Yeah, you could just be like, I'm thinking about a thing. Oh, here, yeah, like hand stuff. Oh, like there was no travel involved. You didn't have to, there was no texting, so it was very like, it was very raw, like the ideas back and forth. Like it made it so easy. It was great.
So you guys keep on mentioning MSU. Which state is that?
Michigan State.
Michigan
University.
Yeah, because we also have Montana State University.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and
So
yeah, and it's really funny how Taylor mentioned that, because that was the first thing that came to my mind. Since I'm from Montana, and and Montana has MSUB, and well, yeah, it has MSU, and yeah. Then as soon as you said that, I just really couldn't help but instantly think of Montana,
Totally.
even though that I know that you both are not from Montana.
yeah,
I mean, it's interesting because like we both went for they call it media and information at the time. I don't think the major exists anymore.
Digital storytelling now, I think.
Yeah, they changed the name. But we are, I mean, most of what we like, I would still, I mean, obviously money's a very complicated thing, and like I'm not like putting a pressure on it, but like the thing that like I got out of college, and I don't want to speak fully for Daniel, but like what I think he would say is like the connections of the people we worked with were by and far the best things, and it wasn't stuff that the school did. Like they talked to Big Game about like, oh, we'll connect you with alumni, we'll do all these things, and then like I partner who I've been with for nearly 4 years now, who I live with, like we met in school. Daniel and I, we've been best friends since we met. We've worked together a bunch. All these other people we've worked with, like we met them in school. And our first movie, Hot Breath, Cold Air, like the guy who executive produced that and funded it and wrote it,
Nice.
he was a professor. Like he was a professor who took a chance on us. Bill Vincent, who was a wonderful, wonderful man. He was a fake Shemp. He helped make The Evil Dead. That's his big claim to fame. But you know, meeting all those people was like by and far the best part of or the most, I guess, the most quality thing that came out of school, as opposed to anything involving the degree or anything that the school itself did. No offense to Michigan State, just
Right, of course.
being honest about it.
So yeah, and so with your guys' first movie, if anybody were to ever want to watch it, could they find it on like Tubi or YouTube or what?
So, coming soon to platforms. As of right now, we don't know the exact details. Things are getting ironed out. It will also soon be available on DVD.
Ooh.
If you are watching this anywhere from like 2 to 4 months in the future, and you are so like anywhere from like March onward, fingers crossed, check out the Evil Twin Digital website, and you'll be able to find links to all of that there. It's just eviltwindigital.com. We'll also, I'm sure, have that sourced on our Instagram and easily accessible.
Yes.
That is all being finalized daily and in ways that are really exciting to two people who are coming into this, and also often like a ton of work in ways we never expected. But that movie will be out soon, and hopefully Hot Breath Cold Day, or hopefully The House on the Lake not too far behind.
When we shot our first 3 movies in one summer.
Yes.
We shot in 2021. We shot in April, the first movie. Then we prepped the next month. So April, prepped May, shot June, prepped July, shot August. We shot 3 movies that way. And then we shot 2 more over the course of the next year and a half. And the whole time, I think in a smart way, we went, okay, we're just going to do this. We're going to rush it. We're going to do it. And then we'll figure out where it goes afterwards. And I think that was ultimately the best decision, because it meant that we shot the stuff and we didn't worry. We weren't like ideating like, oh, is this going to sell? Is it marketable? Like House on the Lake is like, it's a silent 4x3 horror movie. Like it's in black and white. Like, that's not going to like get funded by anyone, but we still made it. But now we've been in this stage for the past like 2 years now, where like all of the stuff that we threw to the future that we're like, it'll get edited and it'll get sold eventually. The eventually hit. And that's why it took like two years, because we had to actually do all the work we put off, and figure out how to find a producer's rep for things, talk to people for DVDs, like do stuff like that, do all these emails. Also, people worry about this so much. If you want to work with someone on something, like be polite, just email them. Like that's worked so well for us so far. Not that I'm saying we're rich or anything, we're not, but like our DVD Blu-ray deal, I just like asked around at a video store in Atlanta and was like, hey, where do you guys, the indie DVDs come from? And Matt, the guy who worked there, went, usually Allied Vaughn. And I went, sweet. And I looked him up and I went, Daniel, here's their email. And then he emailed them.
And now
Hot
Breath Cold Air DVD will be coming from.
Well, now we're working with Random Media.
Yes, Random Media as well.
Yeah, because they're working with them, and that's the complicated part. But it's like, we were just like, what do we do? Email those guys.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, if it worked for all those other people, it makes sense that it would work for you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, people build up making a movie so much. Like it's a difficult thing in regards
hardest
to
thing I've ever done
in comparison to like normal life. But it gets built up in this way where people are like, making a movie, it's so hard, like it's so hard. It's like compared to like a bad divorce, or like watching someone you care about die, or like working a job you hate for decades. It's not hard. Those are hard. Like,
yes,
it's difficult, but like we had professors when we were in school and we were trying to make our first movie, because we were rolling on it Daniel's junior year of college and the end of my senior year of school. We're rolling on this movie and we're about to go on it. We have professors be like, don't make this movie. Like, why would you spend your time? Like, it's not going to work. And then like, you're going to waste all your time on it. And then we got done with it. It's like, it's coming out on Blu-ray this year. It's gonna be on streaming. Like, and I like it. Like, I think it's a good movie. And like it was difficult, but it wasn't like impossible. Because it's a movie of people sitting around in rooms talking about their feelings. Like, I don't know, people like make it into this like the way I relate it is that it's like obviously this isn't like a universal experience, but like when you're like an 11 or a 12-year-old, and like this mostly goes for cis people, but like, and it's like, I don't know what girls are like, and you're like super scared about it, and like you're like, it's this like mystical thing, but then like once you talk to people and like you grow up a little, then you go, oh, these are just other people. Like it's I could just talk to them. Like it's a bit like that, where it's like before you make the movie, you're like, oh, it's this like religious experience, and it's like so crazy, and then you do it and you're just like, oh, that was just like a difficult thing to do.
And people talk about how, like, oh, there's this insurmountable gap between making a short film and making a feature. It's just stamina. It's the same thing as a sprint in a marathon. Like, it's the same job. Like, it's way harder to like run a marathon at full speed than to sprint 100 yards. But it's not like you're learning a whole new skill. If you've made like 3 short films that total out to an hour and 30 minutes or something, however much, you've made a movie. You just have to do that all at once now. And you can.
There are so many people who could have made movies by now who have talked themselves out of it. Like, and that's no disrespect, because like if you genuinely don't want to do it, or you want to do shorts, just do shorts. Like, that's great. There's no moral imperative to making feature films. But like if you want to do it, like, go do it. Like, you know, there's so many movies that are, and not even like classics. Like I always bring up the movie Lake Michigan Monster is a movie we both adore, and it costs like $7,000, and it was shot on like consumer cameras, and it stars a bunch of people who like had normal jobs, like, you know, and I love that movie. I have seen it 9 times in the past year. We watched it on my birthday, like and it cost $7,000. Like, you know, if those guys had talked themselves, that group of people had talked themselves out of it and been like, man, making a movie would be hard, we shouldn't do it, then like, I don't know them, and I love that thing. Like, I'm so happy they took the step.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, a lot of people I feel like underestimate just how much work goes into making a movie, and you know, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of planning, and yeah, and I mean, try to budget it all, and you know, trying to get the thing released, trying to market it right. I mean,
But
it's
also
a
it
lot of
takes a
work.
lot of it also takes a lot of time. It's not something that is just simply done in a couple of days. You got to spend multiple times doing multiple takes, changing locations. You need to strategize where you have to put your time at each location. So for a lot of people, like, they think, why does it take so long? Well, between doing the actual filming and then actually getting to the editing part, editing for like this podcast, just to do 25 minutes, it takes an hour.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time to actually do that stuff.
Oh, it does. And I've even heard stories about people, well, like, who are editing like a sequence that only takes a few minutes. Like it's just a few minutes of screen time, and it takes them hours and hours. And I should know that from the second movie that I made. I mean, it took me the entire summer just to edit the entire movie, when it was supposed to come out in July, but then it ended up coming out in August because I had to postpone it, you know, due to, you know, and the worst thing about my editing software at that time, the bigger the project, the more it would start to, you know, drag and delay and crash. And that's also the thing about editing. You really got to make sure that you have the right software. And that was something that I had to learn the really hard way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so I edit for my day job. I edit for the show Crash Course, the like the Green Brothers show, the educational show, and it's so my day to day is cutting is cutting things, and it's I gotta say I love that job. Like I genuinely truly adore it, and it's been a life changing opportunity for me. And part of that has been the people who've been there before me. I've been editing for a long time, but that kind of pace is interesting because they make so much content. Like if you are subscribed to Crash Course, it's 2 episodes a week. They're each like 12 minutes, and they're like full of graphics, and they're full of cuts, and there's just there's a ton in each one. And then being behind the scenes and learning that, like, just like making a movie, it all comes down to planning. Like even at a company of that scale, is like it's skilled people, like craftspeople who are working in. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about, like, well, I am, but like other people, like those people are doing great jobs and setting that up. But like a lot of it comes down to the fact, like, producers are planning things well and laying out, that are laying out all of the due dates for different things at different times very smartly. Like it's the same as making a movie for something like that. And then on making a movie, though, it is like the reason that things went so much better when Daniel joined on was because he's good at doing spreadsheets, and he's good at like looking at people, getting people's availability, wording the email to get the availability in a way that makes sense, and then laying it out in a spreadsheet so that we can coordinate all the dates. Like that seems like such a small thing, but it's like it's so beneficial to have. It makes it all possible.
Quick shout out to the program Airtable for totally changing my life and making all of this like 10 times easier, and like totally reformatting how I do everything in producing. Thanks, Airtable. Maybe send me some money or a free Airtable subscription, or don't. That's fine. I love your product.
Well,
So-
it sounds like Daniel is kind of similar to the role that I've taken on. Eric and Ty are generally the people's face, is what everyone sees. I'm more behind the scene. I do the editing. I do more the managing part and getting things set up properly. So it sounds like Daniel is taking more on that role.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the world I thrive in. I mean, Ellison also does his fair share of producing, and I couldn't do this without him. He often says the other way around of like, oh, it's you do all the. It's like he does a ton of it too. But that is the domain I have like enjoyed the most. When I first came into filmmaking going into school, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be an editor because like I can sit down at a computer and like put things together. I am not a good editor. I learned very quickly. I am a decent editor. I like edit social media clips for a living, is a portion of my job. I can do it on a creative level. That is something like people who edit on like extreme creative levels. What I can do creatively is I can build teams, and I can communicate with people, and it's a skill I'm really glad that I have and one I've worked on a lot. But yeah, that absolutely, it comes into the managing by way of putting the right people in the room with each other and giving them the right questions to ask each other so that everyone's on the same page. Is a lot of the job.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, as somebody like who has edited films before, I totally understand that. Yeah, I mean, it takes patience. It really does. And I also feel like you have to know about good timing as well. And what has helped me, it may not help everyone else. So this might be entirely subjective. Whenever I edit my own projects, I try to imagine, okay, if I was the audience, how would I want to see it? Like basically just imagine if you were in the shoes of the person watching it.
Yeah.
I
Well-
do this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I do this thing that I thought was normal until Daniel pointed out that he doesn't do it. That from the when I'm going from script, like I do a version of it if I'm writing, but then like I fully get it when I'm doing my shot list because I shot list everything, and then I'll move it around if like it needs to change on the day or something like that. But I shot list everything, and when I'm shot listing while I'm doing it, I watch the movie. Like I literally like from the script, like I'll sit down, I'll close my eyes, and I'll just like I'll see it. And it's odd because it's like in some ways it's like a little bit of a trance where it's like I'll sit in a corner and just like if we need to cut a shot, I'll be like someone will be like, hey, is it gonna work? And I'll be like, hold on, and I'll just like sit in a corner and I'll just like do this, and then like in my head I'll see it without the shot, and I'll like recut it in my head and then go, okay, like it'll work with it, or it'll be like, no, we need it. And I thought that was like the standard way of imagining it all. And then Daniel was like, yeah, I don't get that. Like, that doesn't happen to me. And he still does good. Like, he can still write and he can still direct things and still produce things. Like, it's not like it inhibits his ability. Like, it's not like it's something that where I'm being like, I have this thing. Like, it's just like when it comes to that timing of the edit, though, it's like, it leads to this weird circumstance where like once I'm editing, I'm like, if I'm directing my own words and then I shot it and then I'm editing it, which is the case a lot of the time, I'm like reconstructing the movie I watched already like 2 or 3 times over.
See, like what I do is I picture what I'm actually working on. So like I will take, for example, this. I am processing as it if I was watching it in my editing software. And I'm taking cuts, I'm snippeting, I'm doing all that. I'm taking notes actively while we're doing this, so I know exactly where I want to do certain things at.
That makes sense.
I mean, that's very smart. Like, you're saving yourself the work later, doing it now. Like, that's just smart. But I mean, that's part of the planning of like when we're doing a movie, that it's like Daniel. There's extent. Part of one of the things I enjoyed the most about doing this, because it exists basically mostly in this art form, is the fakery that goes into doing it. Like, which annoys some people to no end, and that's no disrespect to them because like everyone can work the way they work, but I love it when we manage to like do a scene and it's like one actor's not there and the other one is, or like where it's like, oh, and I don't mean like stand-ins, I mean like where we or where it's like, oh, one side of this room is actually like in another state and one side is in this state, and we like moved the furniture from one spot to another and shot our sides right so that it looks like they're next to each other. Like that kind of stuff is the stuff that when it works, I'm just like, oh yes, like this feels so good.
There is a great scene in our musical short, Holly Jolly Christmas Mix-Up, that I remember that is very much that energy of we had a scene that was like at a Mexican restaurant. And there was a Mexican restaurant right down the street from where we lived, and they were closed for either seasonal reasons or it was during COVID, and so there were other factors with the filming due to that. But they were closed, and we were just asking very politely several times, like, "Hey, can we just film on your patio because no one is there, and we just want to come and like film?" And got no answer, and then don't come film on our patio. But luckily, there was an empty lot right next door. So we just cheated it, and we shot on long lenses, and we made it look, we shot all of the conversation in this empty lot across the street, but we made it look like, and in the final project it does, we're just in the patio of the restaurant, and it's a little bigger than it is in real life. And it is one of the silliest things we've ever done, because it was just like a single folding chair that
it's a folding chair.
Yeah. And I think someone was holding a bowl of chips where the table should be so that the characters could pick up chips.
I think we shouldn't sell a chair. I think we had 2 folding chairs. I think we should say we had 2. but
one of my all-time favorite moments of filming and then seeing the final project and going, wow, that really if you weren't there on the day and knew that we were just fully across the street, you wouldn't notice.
But like we did that, we do that all the time, and I love it. Like we had this short naked that we did it. We made this apartment complex out of like 6 buildings.
6 buildings.
Because it's like the roof is one place, the basement's another place, the hallways are one place, then all the rooms are another place, and then the parking lot's another place. Like it was all these different spots. So you have parts where people are like in the hallway knocking on a door, and then when it cuts to the room, it's a completely different building on a different day where the person answers and then talks to them, and they like do a conversation nowhere near each other. And to some people that sounds like hell, like where they're like, oh God, why would you ever do that? To me, I'm just like, oh, it's the thing that we can't do in theater. Like it's the unique thing to this art. Like it's so fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add someone in. It's going to be Ty. He's just got back. He was at the movies. So
Yeah.
welcome in,
I
Ty.
actually was,
Hey,
hey Ty, but yeah, I actually was trying to add you in, but it just, I don't know what was going on. Like it just wasn't
is
having it pop up on screen.
It's because you had it set for 4 people instead of 5 people.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
well,
explain it then.
damn movie times and everything. I had to be late for our own show. So, Eric, am I fired now?
Oh yeah, you are fired. You're a bad employee.
I'm manager, so I'm going to discipline that factor.
All right, cool.
Your pay is docked by 10%.
Darn.
But
Well,
yeah,
so far getting paid 0 anyway. So what the hell? What? Now it's -10.
Yep, you gotta pay ahead.
All right. Well, I take it these guys are picture makers then. So
they are. Yeah, and they actually were just
Speaking of
talking
what?
about how they had to disguise one location, and I mean that's what a lot of film making has, a lot of movie magic. Like in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, some of the scenes inside of the high school weren't actually in the high school, but they just hadn't made it appear as if it was. And honestly, I never even noticed up until when that was pointed out to me.
I think it was Jason Goes to. I think it was Jason Lives, where they filmed it at an actual lake, and then they needed to do some pickup shots, but they couldn't afford to do the money to, go back to Georgia to film this stuff. So literally Tom McLaughlin called his mom and dad and said, "Hey, can I shoot the movie in your pool?"
Well, hey, I mean, you gotta do what you got to do.
And the dad, and I guess what the dad said is, "Do I get studio money for it?" And dad, I guess so. I guess dad gets. I guess literally, they said, "How much do you want?" He said, "Says, well, a penny, because a penny can add up." So just think how much he's made off that 1 penny, right, for that movie.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I even heard something similar happen when they did reshoots, like for Jaws. Like part of it actually was filmed inside of a swimming pool, but it's just the fact they lit it so dark, like where somebody, like say, where the average Joe could, when they watch it, like that they would never know. So
Yeah,
I mean that's part of that's. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, yes, it's the scene where the infamous scene where you see the head pop out, which nowadays you can kind of tell it's a pool because the green lighting, like that doesn't quite look like the natural ocean lighting. But hey, maybe I don't know, maybe Hooper's boat projects green light, so it works.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. But yeah, and it's crazy how that movie's gonna be 50 years old in the summer. And that scene still makes me jump, and it still makes people jump.
I mean, that's part of the fun of. It's not the fun watching so many things. It's like, as someone who loves scary movies, like it's a constant quest now to find new things that are actually scary. Not in a disrespect to new movies, but just in the like all the ones that are like, oh, you got to watch this one, it's really scary. Like I've seen a lot of them. So there's like, when I'm like, oh, I want to get scared by something, like, it's this like gambling thing now of like, because you only get one or two really scary new movies like every year, I feel like, that like really hit it.
Yes. Well, Alice Cooper, the father of shock rock, said it best. Like, you could still shock an audience today, but it wouldn't. But it's less hard to do now than it was in the 70s. Like he said, you almost like have to, literally have somebody, chop his own arms off and then eat them to shock the audience now. And I kind of agree with Alice, but then he sat there and said, but there could be that one person who's just crazy enough in his mom's basement to shock the audience today. And even it goes back to horror too. Like, it's one of the reasons I think the Terrifier movies are successful in some ways, because they are slasher movies, but they're more so updated for a modern audience, where they're grotesque, but there's something about their grotesqueness that it's fake, but it adds to the charm of it, and it's just real enough where it was like, oh wow,
I mean, they're part of why those ones I think work. I think the second and the third one are really great, especially the second one. And I think it's interesting that the first one, I've seen the first one several times by now, because I put it on as like a vibes movie if I'm writing sometimes. But like, I think that one works much worse because it's much slower, and it's much more like, it seems to be much more like doing the thing that it wants to be doing, of like, oh, we're doing this 80s, like this like mid 80s like grunge slasher movie. And then the second and third one are like, okay, we did it, like now we can do our own thing. I think they work much better, and they have they're that old sensibility, but they're faster. Like they move more, they have more character. There's less of like wandering around an abandoned building, like looking at things and being like, I wonder where the bathroom is. Like,
well, I agree. I think the second and third one are better movies. Because, and plus, I just want to know when somebody's going to create, I guess, Damien, I've heard Leone, but come on, I like to say Leone because it makes him sound like he's related to Sergio Leone. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if he's going to say, oh, it's Leone. I'm like, no, I just want you to be Damien Leone because it makes it sound cooler. So, but Damien said that he based art more off of Freddy.
And that makes sense, but what he did is that the opposite, like how Freddy talks, but art doesn't. And
so somebody needs to eventually, when we need to create some new somebody needs to create some new character, so we can eventually do art versus said new character.
I mean, it's hard because like what becomes classics is so. It's hard to know in the moment because they're so retroactive of like,
exactly.
And everyone has their own personal canon. Like I love the Prowler. Like I love the Prowler, and like that's not one of the canon. Like people don't like people casually don't have like tattoos of the Prowler, but like I love him. So like it's hard to know. Like art's such an exception, like as a new thing.
Well, and plus, it's hard to come up with, I think, with the advent of, everything moves so fast now, it seems. It's hard to come up. That's why I appreciate art so much, that he's actually become a new horror icon when, we haven't had a new horror icon, since maybe Ghostface?
Well, I actually would argue with like the Saw movies. Jigsaw definitely did, but the original Saw came out 21 years ago now, and that's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head where it's a recent horror icon.
Does Winnie the Pooh count?
I mean, I
There's
think
those
part of that
Courage
is
Mask guys. They're
yeah.
they're
I
on
think
the fringes.
I think part of it's that we've been in a ghost era for the past since The Conjuring and Paranormal Activity. We're just now kind of getting out of it. We've been in a ghost thing for a minute now, where we don't have a lot of distinct looking people. It's a lot of oh God, they're doing such a great job making objects move when we're not looking at them. The movie's so good, but you don't get done being and I want to dress up as that guy.
Or 69
Yeah.
Amityville, or the 69 Amityville movies that are out right now.
We were on a set one time. We were waiting around, and because they were filming in another room, and the rest of the crew was just sitting. And we did a game where we were like, "Everyone, how many Amityville movies do we think there are?" We all just went around, guessing. We're like, "Is there one about a shark?" I'm like, "Amityville shark." Yep. Oh, Amityville space station. Yep. Amityville. We just did a game of it for 30 minutes. It was a great passing time thing.
Yeah.
Well,
and the reason why that there's so many Amityville movies is because technically Amityville horror is in the public domain. And so one day I got curious and I typed in Amityville on Tubi. There's one, I kid you not, I'm not trying to be funny, although it is funny.
And it writes itself.
Yeah, there's one called Amityville Toilet.
There's a toilet in there. I see nothing weird about this.
Amityville, no, Eric. It's called Amityville Death Toilet.
Well,
oh boy,
need more definition.
What I meant
about a possessed toilet from Amityville. I'm like, okay, there's some, and then there's some of them that it's sometimes you have to wonder what was the director doing before he was writing, or the writer doing before he was doing the movie. Yeah, man.
Just probably do some shrooms.
Probably. And
yes.
I mean, part of it, I don't know. It's fun to make stupid things. Saying it's we have it depends on what speaks to you. This sounds weird because it's how would Amityville Death Toilet speak to someone? You're like, oh, that's so strange. But we have a sketch called Seinfeldamarink it's the movie Skinamarink, but it's a Seinfeld episode. And that's an extremely stupid joke, but it spoke to us enough to make it. So Amityville Death Toilet, you're like, okay, why would but then to them it's they had a bit, or their personal sense of humor made that fulfilling to them.
Well, I think sometimes I argue that sometimes there's that type of mood that maybe you just had a absolute crappy day and you just want to watch something stupid. So if you're going on Tubi and you see Amityville Death Toilet, you're like, okay, this either might be, no pun intended, really crappy, or you actually might get a good laugh out of it. So, and as someone who has seen the movie, yeah,
a great movie.
It worked though. You watched it.
Well, I was curious about all the Amityville movies because I thought about being the one guy on YouTube to review all of them, But then when you get to stuff like Amityville Vibrator, it's like, wow, I don't know.
We're still in household objects. These all track to me. If you're possessing things, I don't know. You run out of options. I see it.
Well, as long as maybe if they get a spot, maybe who knows, maybe if whiskey wants to get some more money, they can make Amityville Jack Daniels.
That's a thing of independent film that on the low level of what we're doing, where there's no money, is getting sponsored by a local business to put them either as the producer or something like that. That I watched two separate slasher horror comedies that had they had gardening was it? Yeah, it was irrigation and gardening companies like lawn care as their sponsors, and it was it's so strange seeing that credit on the beginning of the movie, but also good for them because it's so getting the money is so difficult. Good on them that they found someone who's an irrigation company head who was yeah, I'll give you it for your horror movie.
Yeah, well, getting sponsors and people to invest in anything, it's it's difficult. Like what Ed Wood, Eric, he got a local butcher to invest in one of his movies.
Yeah, I think that was for Bride of the Monster, and then for Plan 9 from Outer Space, he actually got a church, like a Baptist church, to fund it. Which I mean, you would think that a lot of churches like that would be all uptight about a movie like
especially,
that, but yeah.
especially Baptists.
Yeah, but the reason why he convinced them to do it is because the church was trying to invest in 12 apostle movies, and then he said, okay, if you fund this movie will bring in enough revenue that it can fund all of your 12 apostle movies. So that's how he did it, is because that he found a way like that would negotiate with what they wanted, and then therefore they're like, okay, if we're gonna invest into it, there'll be something in it for us.
Exactly.
I mean, part of making this is like I don't know. It's hard to get money for any of this because like investing in independent film is a bad investment, especially right now. Like I know that's odd to say coming from us, but like part of the reason we've been able to get any money for things is because our budgets are so astronomically low that it's not asking someone for millions or even like tens of thousands of dollars. It's like, do you have $30 you could float our way? Like those kinds of things. It's like, oh, that's more reasonable. I'm sacrificing one dinner out to see the movie someday. But like we're in a climate right now where it's like, the stories from old that are so entertaining and like keep you going, like are also they don't hold up as well as they used to in the reality of it. Because also like the butcher doesn't have as much money to invest in things because the butcher's also hurting. Like it's a very different odd time to be finding money for things.
Look at Evil Dead. That movie was funded by doctors, lawyers, and real estate people, and I honestly think part of it was probably having Bruce Campbell be the salesman, because come on, it's Bruce. Are you going to say no to Bruce Campbell, even 23 years old Bruce, or like 19 years old Bruce? I mean, he's pretty charismatic. And then you see Sam Raimi, who is, let's face it, not exactly like the most charismatic looking person, So Bruce financed a lot of that movie by just getting, I think even Dad, Sam Raimi's dad, gave him $100 one time just to put foot into the movie, So
I mean, so our executive producer of our first movie worked on The Evil Dead, Bill Vincent. He's a fake shemp on it. He knew the Raimis. He's friends with several of that crew.
Yeah.
And it is wild that they were able to do something like that, and it's very inspiring. Like it's the thing. That vision kind of, I think, in the worst moments of it, tries to keep a lot of us, in Daniel and I's spot going. But it is also, it's wild to have, knowing someone involved in it, to have a living reminder of how long it's been and how it's an inspiration, and it's also it's such a different world than it was in the 80s when like Stephen King sees your movie and then like you got it. That we did a lot of the things we've done on the same stories that I think inspire you too. And it's so strange that when you meet the real people, that it is like, oh, they're just like, Bill's just a guy. Like, you get lunch with him. Like,
right.
He owns a barn. Like,
I want to see a movie about the making of Evil Dead.
I also do, and
I'd pay to see that.
Now that you
same here.
Now that you say that, I never thought of it, but yeah, I mean, totally. But I mean, it would be hard to find somebody who looks like Bruce Campbell, but I'm sure that there has to be somebody out there.
make
Finn
it funny.
Wolfhard.
Have him play himself, even at this age. Like
Yeah.
that's the joke. You have him play him. Everyone else is young people, and then he's Bruce Campbell's just still him.
Yeah.
No, come on. You know who Hollywood would get? Finn Wolfhard as Bruce Campbell.
Here's the thing. This is gonna sound weird. I worked in a movie theater in Atlanta for a while after when like film work wasn't working, and I met Finn Wolfhard one time, and he was. We had no kind of significant conversation. I handed him some candy and told him that he didn't need to pay for it because the studio paid for it. And he went, "Oh, cool, thanks." And then he walked away and talked to his brother. And he seemed like a very charming young man. He would be bad for playing Bruce Campbell, but he seemed like a lovely guy.
That's why it's called a joke. So
No, I see you. I thought it was funny that it was like, oh, that's like the one celebrity that's like, oh, I could.
Well, I mean, it's only like young celebrity I could even think of really that would be around that age. But like, just give an unknown the chance of a lifetime. Have him play Bruce Campbell, right?
Yeah. So,
But I do like that idea. Bruce Campbell playing himself at 19 years old.
As long as you're making a farce, why not?
Exactly.
If you're gonna make a movie about the making of the Evil Dead, there's no way for it not to be.
Yeah.
Then at that rate, maybe I think I have a perfect actor to play Sam Raimi. He's a little old, but since Bruce is going to be old, why not just make Sam old too, as the joke? Get Paul Giamatti.
Interesting choice.
it's an interesting choice.
I mean, it could be more of a documentary type instead of actually acting. I mean,
yeah,
why make everyone old? Why make everyone old? I mean, it's not like we actually get older or anything.
Yeah, or just maybe have Bruce at the beginning playing Bruce Campbell and have him tell the story and say how this is an exaggerated truth of what happened.
Yeah, like so basically.
Basically, like have Bruce Campbell, in like those classic story time bit things where he's like reading the story,
Okay.
I get
So,
that.
anyways, I think that's a good place to wrap things up with. And so Ellison and Daniel, do you two have any upcoming projects that you would want the audience to be aware of?
So we've talked about our two upcoming features, Hot Breath Cold Air, which you can find the trailer for on our YouTube channel and our Instagram page, both Evil Twin Digital, and our other upcoming movie, which is doing some festivals right now, The House on the Lake, which similarly trailers are on our Instagram, YouTube, and any other social media you can find us.
All right.
Yeah, that's the best. I want to put out that also The House on the Lake was co-directed with Harrison Orwig, who's a very talented filmmaker working out in LA. It felt impolite to not mention them because they worked very hard on the movie. They also edited it. They're a very talented person.
All right. Awesome.
I certainly greatly do appreciate you two coming on, and I definitely would love to have you two back on again.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, certainly.
See ya.
Have a good one.
See you later.